Hello, everyone. My name is Rick Santos. I'm President and CEO of Church World Service, and thank you for joining us today in our continued efforts to uplift this vital ecumenical declaration. We are joined today by CWS covenant members, congregations from across the nation, and individuals devoted to returning our nation back to one of welcome. This is a critical time for us to come together, not only to protect the displaced, but to affirm the message of our faith. And in the treatment of those who are displaced and persecuted. Its design is a powerful tool for justice. With over 3,000 signers thus far, including individuals and congregations and organizations, we are seeing a groundswell of support, and we only hope to build on this momentum and go beyond up to Easter and hopefully then continue the momentum through World Refugee Day in June. Today with us speaking will be Danilo Zak, Director of Policy at Church World Service, and he will share the current state of play on the executive orders, the resettlement system, and the impacts on our communities. After Danilo will be Bishop Minerva G. Carcano of the United Methodist Church, and she will share with us the importance of this declaration and how the UMC is putting it to work. Following, Susan Kreibel, a ruling elder in the Presbyterian Church and a member of Catonsville Presbyterian Church in Maryland, will share why they signed the declaration and how the church is also putting it into action. We will then hear from Reverend Jacob Buchholz, co-senior pastor at Claremont United Church of Christ in California, who will share their church's experiences as well. Following our speakers, we will open this webinar for questions and discussion. Please feel free to use the Q&A function in Zoom to submit your questions, and we'll do our best to respond to them. We hope today's session will equip and inspire you to share out the declaration, to encourage others to sign on, including individuals and their congregations, and to spread the message of welcome through action in your communities. I can honestly say we've not seen a time like this in my lifetime in terms of the way this administration is looking at welcome and people, refugees, and others. And really, it's a time for us to speak up, to say what we think, to speak our values, to speak our faith, and to come together and do this together. So I thank you again for being here on this webinar. I thank you for all that you do in terms of welcome and the work that we do. And I'd like to begin and welcome Danilo as our first presenter. Danilo.
Thanks so much, Rick, and thanks everybody for joining us. Happy to be here with all of you in uncertain times, and want to begin sort of this webinar by providing a little bit of a state of play and sharing what's been happening under these first 78 days since President Trump was inaugurated for his second term, and the impact on some of the communities that we serve, the refugee and immigrant communities that all of us are alongside all over the country. And, want to make the point, this is really unlike what happened under President Trump's first term. Refugees and newcomers in this country and the programs and infrastructure, the bipartisan programs and infrastructure that have long been a part of welcome in this country are all under truly unprecedented threat. And so do want to talk a little bit about where things stand right now. So again, it's been 78 days since the inauguration, around that long since the executive orders, which created an indefinite ban on refugee resettlement, a funding freeze on a number of key programs and accounts, and a series of other executive actions that have targeted newcomers, both those who are hoping to arrive via humanitarian pathways and those who are already here. So when it comes to the refugee program, the refugee ban and the funding fees remain largely in effect. Now, almost 80 days later, the 22,000 refugees who were declared ready for departure, so they were in the pipeline, they completed often years of rigorous security and medical screenings. And many of them had family members or communities waiting to welcome them. They remained stranded in limbo in increasingly dangerous circumstances as well, given the lack of international humanitarian aid and challenges the UN is facing in serving refugees who remain outside of the US. At the same time, a number of refugees who were already resettled here across the country in the months before the inauguration have been abruptly cut off in many cases from support. Resettlement agencies have done what they can to continue serving, but have not been able to continue receiving funds for ongoing services to refugees who are here, which has created enormous challenges. And I know many communities across the country have been working to respond to those. And then the contracts that resettlement agencies hold with the federal government in this really vital public-private partnership that is the refugee admissions program have been either terminated or suspended and remain that way. Of course, the refugee program is not the only humanitarian pathway that has been shut off in recent months. We've seen an almost complete halt to access to asylum protections for those who are arriving at the southwest border. The Afghan Special Immigrant Visa Program, around the same time that refugee flights were halted, have been canceled as well. Some Afghan SAVs have been able to pay for their own travel, but they're not receiving the same support. And those requiring ongoing processing have, in many cases, been stuck in limbo as well. Those are folks who supported the US military and are at risk because of that support in Afghanistan or nearby countries. And then other humanitarian programs like the Uniting for Ukraine program, which brought so many Ukrainians fleeing Russian invasion and many more who had made applications, have also been indefinitely paused or halted. And of course, again, it's not just about these humanitarian programs that have brought those from overseas to the US and halting folks who are hoping to arrive and fleeing persecution to find safety at our shores. It's also so many who are already here have been caught up in what is really an increasingly indiscriminate mass deportation campaign by the administration, and want to talk about some of those efforts as well. One of the cruel ironies of this administration's desire to ramp up overall detention and deportation numbers is that the individuals most known to the government, those who are already receiving vital congressionally mandated services on account of their vulnerability, those are some of the folks most at risk because they're the easiest ones for the government to reach and attempt to detain and deport. And so we've seen, for example, those who have arrived under humanitarian parole programs like the Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, Venezuelan program, subject to stripping of their protections and then placing immediately into removal procedures. There was a policy in February in which the Trump administration directed ICE agents to explicitly track down unaccompanied children and target them for deportation. So it is among those who are the most vulnerable who are increasingly subject to some of these attacks. And beyond that, we've also seen the rollback of the critical protected areas policy, which really since 1993 in some form, there have been a number of different iterations of this policy, and it continued through the first Trump administration. There were protections against ICE agents conducting enforcement operations in places of worship, in schools, in hospitals. Those protections have been rolled back. And so, it's just one example of the many, many restrictions and attacks of this administration on our refugee and immigrant neighbors. So I want to, note all of this that's happening. It's an incredibly difficult time for so many, while also pivoting to what might be coming and what we can collectively do about it. And there is some hope. We've seen that we can make a difference, even under the first Trump administration, even under this administration already. And it's often come really through a combination of two different things. And the first has been litigation and action in the courts. And of course, Church World Service is involved in that fight as well. We're plaintiffs in the Pacito versus Trump suit that challenges the refugee ban. We've gotten some very positive rulings on that front, although I think the administration has often been dragging its feet to respond to those rulings. That's one reason refugees continue to be stranded. But we have seen courts make very positive rulings in support of due process rights, in support of the refugee resettlement program, in support of some of these humanitarian programs that have bipartisan support in Congress and are congressionally mandated. But at the same time, we recognize that the litigation always has to come alongside sustained grassroots and grasstops momentum, sustained advocacy from diverse communities, communities of faith, veterans, employers, so many others that lift up the dignity of those who are impacted by these harmful actions and call on our policymakers, our elected leaders, the leaders in our communities to take action and to use their own voices to stand for those who are being targeted. And so, again, we've seen a number of these court cases that have paused or altered some of the Trump administration's actions, but we need to join in action to fill in that space and make a difference now and come alongside the litigation to fight for some of these programs. And there are a number of upcoming opportunities to do so. And Rick already mentioned that a little bit, but on Easter Sunday, on April 20th, a report is due from the Secretaries of State and Homeland Security on the possible resumption of the refugee program. World Refugee Day is coming up on June 20th, just a couple months later. There are congressional recesses happening where members are returning to their home districts, meeting with their constituents, asking them about the issues that they care about. It's really important to be raising our voices in support of newcomers in this moment. And then September 30th is the deadline for the administration to set a new refugee admission ceiling. So many opportunities to raise our voices in support of welcome, in support of these policies, and pushing back against some of the harmful actions of the administration, which, as I noted, are very much still in place and even ramping up in many cases. But I will pause there and turn it back over to you, Rick.
Great. Thanks, Danilo. There's definitely questions coming in, and we're going to be taking them a little bit later, but please keep them coming. I'd like to invite Bishop Carcano from the United Methodist Church to speak next.
Thank you, Rick, very much. Friends, it's so good to be together and to remember together as covenant partners under the banner of Church World Service. We've been working together for almost 80 years to express real love to persons and to families from all over the world in need of refuge. In the United States, together we have worked to welcome our refugee siblings, helping them to find a home among them, being compassionate and loving communities for them where they can also be safe, where they can also live in peace and thrive. Our refugee siblings from all over the world have come to us as a blessing, a true blessing from God, traveling to us not because it was their dream or their hope, but because terrible, life-destroying circumstances took everything they had, making them, as has already been stated, among the most vulnerable. As United Methodists, we join all of you in actively welcoming our refugee siblings. Our United Methodist Committee on Relief, UMCOR, partners with Church World Service and others who work directly with migrants and refugees by providing food, basic necessities, and legal and transportation services for vulnerable migrants and refugees. UMCOR works directly with our Methodist congregations at that local level, helping them through migrant seed grants so that local congregations can provide basic goods and services to migrants and refugees in their communities. It also works to support churches and organizations that receive and accommodate refugees and immigrants in other parts of the world. Recently, our United Methodist Commission on Religion and Race and our United Methodist in North Carolina, in New York, in Western North Carolina, and North Georgia joined a lawsuit with others rooted in Christian and Jewish faiths against the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement because of the removal of the protection of sensitive locations, those sensitive locations being among them hospitals and schools and places of worship. These colleagues from among us brought forth this lawsuit unified in a fundamental belief that every human being, regardless of birthplace, is a child of God, worthy of dignity, of care, and of love. They've claimed that welcoming the stranger, the immigrant, the refugee is a central part of our faith practice. Immigrants, among them refugees, should be safe in our congregations, in our places of worship, and certainly ever without the threat of being detained, of being imprisoned, or of being deported. Our United Methodist Council of Bishops has challenged President Trump on his executive order that suspended U.S. foreign aid because, as we all know, such suspension of humanitarian aid will exacerbate human suffering all over the world, contribute to the further creation of environments of political and social unrest, and cause more inhumane forced migration. And friends, I just need to say that we United Methodists are strengthened by being able to work with all of you. With you at this moment in this country, we are committed to preserving the good work of church world service. It's our work. And above all, we are committed to standing firm before God to be there as those who welcome the refugee who comes among us in need of our support. Our Ash Wednesday Ecumenical Declaration is a further good step in that direction. And let us be clear. Our commitment to our Church World Service Ash Wednesday Ecumenical Declaration is first and foremost to support immigrants and refugees. But it is also the renewal of our pledge to God to be a faithful people of Christian faith. Today, we remember that what is most important is not that we got our name signed onto the ecumenical declaration, that we promised each other, and above all, that we made a promise to our refugee sisters and brothers before God that we would accompany them and share what we have only by God's mercy with them so that they too may have abundant life. In our ecumenical declaration, we boldly state that we stand united in our resolve to love our neighbor as ourselves. And we quote that first epistle of John, chapter 3. Hear that word again through Eugene Peterson's The Message. This is how we've come to understand and experience love. Christ sacrificed his life for us. This is why we ought to live sacrificially and not just be out for ourselves. If you see a brother or sister in need and have the means to do something about it, but you turn a cold shoulder and do nothing, what happens to God's love? It disappears. And you, me, we made it disappear. My dear children, let's not just talk about love. Let's practice real love. This is the only way we'll know we're truly living in God's reality. The Word of God for the people of God. Today, as in years past, some terrible things are happening in the United States and in many places around the world that force too many of God's children to become refugees without a place to land and live. But let us remember that while we may live in this country or in other parts of the world, we as Christians know that above all, we are citizens of of the reign of God, committed to living according to God's will. And let us remember that all things, everything is under the reign of God, and God will have the last word. We are a people of Christian faith, 14 covenant partners representing over 9 million people in the US and Canada, committed as Church World Service to living in God's reality, a life in and through which sacrificial love is real. It's not just the talk of the day, but the daily living of who we are. May it be so with God's help. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop Carcano, for those lovely words and your support. I'm going to turn this over now to Susan Kreibel, ruling elder in the Presbyterian Church. Susan.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks to CWS for this invitation. And thank you, Bishop Carcano, for those wonderful remarks. They are definitely encouraging. I am, as Rick said, a member of Catonsville Presbyterian Church, which is part of the Presbyterian Church USA, which is also a covenant member. And I was asked to share with you a little bit about how we are trying to live out our commitment expressed through this declaration. And first of all, I would just say we have a long ongoing relationship with Church World Service. We have decades of members participating in crop walks, of mission committee support, of adult education moments. And so this invitation was something that we were eager to join and to really say, what is the moment we're in now? And the first thing that came to mind was that we may feel overwhelmed by all the changes going on in this country. So what can we do where we are and with the people with whom we are in relationship? And so it was easy for us as a congregation to say, we are in relationship with Church World Service. We are part of their ministry and mission, and therefore we care about them. And I'm going to share with you a photo of one of the things that we did to kind of inspire the congregation. So in February, we on two consecutive Sundays, we invited members of the congregation to write messages to Church World Service staff. We know that this is a difficult moment in the lives of refugees and all those who are on the move, particularly those who are either already here in the United States or on their way here. And we also know that that takes its toll on the staff of Church World Service who are trying to be our witness in the world. And so we invited people of all ages to write messages and prayers and words of encouragement. We had in two Sundays well over 100 hearts that were completed, which we were then able to deliver to the staff. It may sound like a simple thing to do, but it was one way that we could already put those prayers into a visible thing with our hope that staff could see these prayers and words of encouragement and actually know that we are present with them. In addition to that and sharing the pledge, we are now challenging our congregation to take on individual donations. Our mission committee has already sent in an initial donation to Church World Service, but then instead of just doing a donation on behalf of the church, they said we'd like to challenge individual members to give up to $5,000, and then our mission committee will send an additional $5,000. So we are a few weeks into that challenge, and we are almost at our 5,000 mark. If we hit that, that means the total contribution from our church will reach $15,000, which makes it one of our primary partners for the year. Individual donations, of course, is just one of the other ways in which we express our involvement. We are in the season of Lent, and Good Friday is soon upon us. And so as we thought about that, we thought, what better time to use Good Friday prayer as a way to also pray for those who find themselves in vulnerable situations, and who find themselves either suffering here in the United States, or as Danilo talked about, those 22,000 refugees whose lives are in limbo. And so on Good Friday, we are going to be using some of the stories that Church World Service has shared with us, the vigil template we are borrowing from in order to put together the prayers. And we are lifting up those stories of individuals that are both, as Bishop Carcagno so lovely mentioned, are a blessing to us, but also knowing that they need our solidarity. We're going to start the worship service inside, but then coming outside for the end of our prayer time so that we can also do that as a public witness. And these are just some of the ways that we hope to continue to lift up the concerns of the refugees and all of those that we find displaced here in our country and those that we seek to serve. And with that, I will pass it back to Rick.
Thanks, Susan. Thank you for your great words and your examples of how a local church can participate and take action. I'd like to now invite our next speaker, the Reverend Dr. Jacob Buchholz, senior pastor from Claremont United Church of Christ in California. Jacob.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with everyone. I, as was said, am Jacob and co-senior pastor along with my spouse, Jennifer Strickland, in Claremont, California. And our congregation has been so thirsty for any way that we can put our faith into action. And so we were really grateful for Church World Service and this ecumenical petition, because it was a way for us to recognize that we can't do this work alone as a single congregation and even a single denomination. The United Church of Christ needs so much support in the work that we are all mutually trying to do. And so to have an ecumenical effort where we can all say collectively that this is where our values lie, and working on issues of refugee resettlement and immigration and asylum seeking support are important to us. And so this is an issue of particular focus for our congregation, being in Southern California, close to the border. We've been doing this work in earnest since 2018, when we partnered with other mission organizations in our area who were trying to work to shut down facilities where asylum seekers were being detained. And so we have a detention center that's about an hour from us that's run by GEO, which is the largest facility, the largest organization that is doing detention work that gets major grants from the government. And so we know that they are continuing to build more detention centers right now. They're getting a lot of funding. And so we've been doing work trying to stop GEO from expanding, trying to close down detention centers here in California, but also, particularly pre-COVID when it was easier, sending folks to the detention centers to visit with asylum seekers, to write them letters, to accompany them, to go to their court cases. And the congregation was able to raise funds to bond out to people from detention who lived with folks in our congregation as they got settled, were able to get work permits and to get them up and going, because we know that this asylum seeking process can take years. And it's really hard to get any sort of financial assistance or work permits. So that's been what our congregation has been focusing on, particularly working with asylum seekers and then working with local mission organizations that are doing refugee resettlement work. We know how important this work is right now, especially given the perilous times that we're in. We recently shared with the congregation just this past Sunday that a local family from Colombia, who we had been supporting as a congregation with payments to help them with housing, um, the husband given was arrested and given the option to either go to prison or to voluntarily deport without his family. And so he made the choice to self-deport. His family was left facing homelessness with no income source. And so this local organization that we support was trying to give them rent payments to support them. But the pain and the hardship of being separated as a family was too much. And so the wife and two children made the decision to go back to Colombia as well, where they're facing risks of their own safety, just so that they could be together as a family. And so our congregation was able to support them, helping them with a donation to this mission organization that was able to purchase their flights back to Colombia. But just to know that this was a family important to our congregation, and here they are with our own eyes being deported forcibly, I think is a wake up call to our congregation. And so we're just always looking for ways that we can put, as I said, our faith into action. And it's really hard to do that because of how much there is to do and how many atrocities are being perpetrated right now. And so to have a central resource like Church World Service, which our congregation has been attached to for many decades, is so helpful. To have the resource through the Church World Service of being able to see what pieces of legislation are being up for debate in California so that our congregation can call our local representatives and ask them to support those pieces of legislation is incredibly helpful. To have liturgical resources so that we can intertwine these themes of love for the immigrant and love for the refugee into our worship services so that it stays at the forefront of our liturgy as a congregation is incredibly helpful as well. And so we look forward to continuing to partner with Church World Service to be able to have resources shared with us so that we can then bring them to our congregation. And so something like signing on to this ecumenical statement on Ash Wednesday was something very specific our congregation could do. So thank you so much for providing those resources to us that we can then share with the wider congregation. That's all from me. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Jacob. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to all the. I thought I had unmuted. So I want to say thank you to all the speakers today. They did a wonderful job sharing their passion, their faith, their action, and what they do. We've been getting questions in the chat and in the questions box. I know Danilo has been answering most of those. I'm not sure if there's, I think most of the questions have been answered. If there are other questions, you can put them now as we begin to wrap up. There was one question specifically around other countries and their refugee work and the U.S. funding freezes. And my understanding is those, first of all, those countries' systems are separate than ours. And it's my understanding that those countries continue to resettle refugees. Um, Mary Catherine put many of the links to the different things that we do, the toolkits and so forth, in the chat. So please make sure you see those, connect with those, and also on the Church World Service website, you can find both the Ecumenical Declaration as well as many of the resources that we mentioned today. Um, I want you to just to know that we're going to be doing another session like this in the future, probably closer to and before World Refugee Day, which is coming up in June. So we are going to continue this work, even though we called it the Ash Wednesday Ecumenical Declaration, even though we launched it as part of the Lenten season and which concludes with Easter. We will continue to do the declaration and to have it be pushed out to as many people who want to see it as possibly can, as many people can sign it, and we will continue doing that through World Refugee Day in June. So much like our faith is something we do every day. It's not just part of the Easter season. We're not religious just on Easter and Christmas, but we're hopefully every day we share and show our faith, and hopefully we can continue to have people sign on to the Ash Wednesday Declaration and also take the actions that we ask in that declaration. So as this, this moment is really, really important. It is we're so quickly coming into Holy Week, and really, I wish everyone a wonderful Holy Week. If that is what you celebrate, I know there are other faith traditions celebrating other religious holidays near this time. But really, I wanted to say this is really for me, and I hope for you and for all of us, a moment to live out our faith. This is a moment to embody love in action and to defend the rights and the dignity of those seeking refuge. If you've got a few minutes more, we do have a short 2-minute video that we'd like to play for you. And I think that's being put up. And if and just again, I just deep appreciation for Bishop Carcano, for Danilo, for Susan Kreibel, for Jacob. Just thank you for your time with us today. Your expression of faith and your commitment to those who are vulnerable. So Mary Catherine, do we have the video to share?
Yes, Heather's going to run that for us.
Okay, great.
As we reflect during this Lenten season, we remember Lent is not only about letting go, but about making room for truth.
Room for transformation, room for those who have been pushed to the margins in our communities and in our world.
Let this Lent be a season of belonging, where we remember that we are our brother's keeper. Let this Lent be a season of holy discomfort, where the ashes on our foreheads do not mark our righteousness,
but our radical repentance. For every time we turned away from the stranger, for every time we stayed silent when love demanded we speak.
Let this Lent be for the children in detention, for the families crossing deserts seeking safety or being separated by deportation, the mothers carrying infants across borders seeking room at the inn.
Let this Lent be a season of radical hospitality in our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world.
A season when we release comfort and take hold of courage. A season rooted in a revolution of welcome, resistance fueled by compassion.
A season when we remember Christ was a refugee.
Christ still stands at the border, at our door, knocking and asking to be let in. Because Christ dwells in every act of love and mercy, in every door open, in every table made longer, and in every risk taken for the sake of another.
Let this Lent be the one that changes everything. A declaration of hope and a season of welcoming the one who first welcomed us.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we will be in touch, and hopefully you will spread the word as we move forward in this and closer to Holy Week. Thank you.